Welcome back, Lucha fans. It is I, the man born at a very young age, El Ojo. Today we review the penultimate film in our current series, titled Las Luchadoras vs. El Robot Asesino. Released in 1969, this film was directed by a staple here, Rene Cardona. It is the first film without Loretta Vines or Gloria Ruby, but it is the first film in the series released in color. This film stars Regina Thorne as Gabby and Malu Reyes as Gemma. For my eagle-eyed viewers, Regina Thorne also starred in the 1992 film Like Water for Chocolate, playing Mama Elena, and the 1967 film Rocambole contra las Mujeres Arpias as Amanda Valdez. Don't worry, that film is on the list. Malu Reyes was born in La Tierra de Dinosaurios, or more commonly known as Torreón, Coahuila, Mexico, which makes her Paisa, as El Ojo and his kin are from the state of Coahuila. Plus Ultra. By the way, that is the motto on Coahuila's coat of arms, not a Boku no Hero Academia reference. Is this Lucha related? No, but El Ojo loves Coahuila. Moving on, while researching this movie, I came across some damning allegations. Number 1, this is a rehash of the 1962 Las Luchadoras Contra el Medico Asesino. We actually reviewed this film in episode 2, if you haven't seen it already. In fact, in the book The Mexican Masked Wrestler and Monster Filmography, the writer Alfredo Salazar is listed on both projects. Allegation number 2 claims that this film is a remake of the episode Return of the Cybernauts from the 1962 British TV series The Avengers, no relation, currently streaming on TV at the time of this recording. The episode Return of the Cybernauts was released in 1968, a whole year before this film was released, and the robot shares a lot of physical similarities. Side note, I did some research and watched the episode, and I found the scientist in Return of the Cybernauts is played by the legendary Peter Cushing. If that name sounds familiar to you, congrats, you're old, or a nerd. For everyone else, that is the Grand Moff Tarkin of Rogue One fame. He also starred in the 1958 Horror of Dracula, the 1957 The Curse of Frankenstein, and, for all my vintage fans, Star Wars. This has nothing to do with Lucha. But go out of your way and watch Return of the Cybernauts after this review, and tell me what you think in the comments below. With a 5.0 on IMDb, this is the third highest rated film in the Las Luchadoras film series. Does it deserve that title? Let's find out. Credits. Montage of a man, presumably a scientist since he has a lab coat, turns on a robot, while the robot breaks several doors. Title: Las Luchadoras vs. El Robot Asesino. The montage is cool, but it goes on for a solid 3 minutes. Also, I have a suspicion that these are scenes from the film to come, so it kind of gives away the action. Opening shot. A robot walks in a cemetery and throws boxes on the ground, then begins choking an old man. Match number 1. Pause. I'm not against the creative direction of this film, but why show 3 minutes of a robot rampaging in credits, then show an opening scene of a robot rampaging more? Why not have a montage of someone working on the parts of the robot, then an opening shot of a silhouette attacking people? Seems a bit redundant, but what do I know? Back to the match. We get a look of the new unknown tall girl named Gabby in a singles match. And you know she's the protagonist because she wins the match in 58 seconds. After the match, her uncle joins her in the locker room and says, "I thought you were going to lose." A very supportive family. Gabby asks her uncle to leave so she can change and they can go eat. Suddenly, we are transported to a lab. The robot man brings the old man through a sliding door. 2 scientists begin surgery on the old man. It is actually shot pretty well. The scientist yells, "Another failure!" While the tall surgeon monologues, a random nurse covers the body with a blanket. But a growl is heard, so the scientist and his nurse go to the basement, and we are introduced to Carfax. No, not that one. The zombie man, even though he looks more like the man-ape from El Medico Asesino. Go check that out if you haven't already. The scientist explains he wants to control man, but his experiments suffered a metamorphosis and became Carfax. Carfax has fits of rage, but he is the only survivor of the doctor's operations. The doctor's apprentice says, "Well, you built a robot, you should be proud." But the professor scoffs and replies, "No, robots are easy. They are wires. Humans are more difficult, but robots are expensive." The doctor wants to make something similar to the robot, but cost effective. Something in this economy I, the viewer, can relate to. The doctor monologues some more. He wants to turn humanoids into cyborgs to do his bidding, and he will not rest until his goal is achieved. The student recommends taking other scientists so they can help him with his problems. The evil doctor, like Scorpio from The Simpsons episode You Only Move Twice, Season 8, Episode 2, says, "My goodness, what an idea. Why didn't I think of that?" But the professor ponders, whom are the greatest minds? At the ladies' gym, Gabby gets a phone call from her uncle, and he invites her to dinner, but he tells her to cook. At the uncle's lab, Professor Reina invites his lab assistant, Dr. Orlock, the mad scientist from earlier, now sporting glasses, but he declines. This is why nerds stay single, by the way. At the villain's lair, Dr. Orlock's assistant has selected the first scientist on the list. It's Uncle Professor Reina. So, he activates the robot by putting a photo in his chest. The evil professor explains he has the ability to find anyone out of a group of 10 million people. How? This is never explained. This movie was filmed in 1969, and what is considered as the world's first personal computer was not sold until 1971 as the Kenback 1 by John Blackenbaker of the Kenback Corporation. Additionally, these computers don't look like the computers of today. They look like this. Anyway, in the basement, the nurse is fixing her garment in front of the zombie man, while he just stares at her menacingly. So the nurse, like many women, misses the red flags, and Carfax, the zombie man, attacks her. The doctor upstairs realizes it has been a long time since he's seen his nurse. Back at the uncle's lab, Gabby appears for dinner, but the uncle forgot he invited her for dinner. He also can't find his glasses on his head. Meanwhile, at the evil lab, the professor finds the nurse in a red puddle, and the zombie hiding, so the professor starts to whip Carfax. At the uncle's lab, he makes her work, and says it's about time you become productive instead of wrestling. He also says she should get married. She goes into the office and says, "Why don't you get married?" Suddenly, just like the Kool-Aid man, the robot smashes the wall, and robot Asesino karate chops her uncle. Gabby runs out of the office, but it's a trap. The robot karate chops her and takes her uncle. Gabby wakes up, and we meet two Secret Service agents, Arturo, the strong serious type, and Java, the comic relief. Meanwhile, Professor Reina is in a cell, and Dr. Orlock says he knows more anatomy than any man in the world. Orlock asks his assistant if he knows anyone who's good at engineering. The student tells his master he knows a few, but they need to see which one is the best. Back at the professor's lab, Orlock is in a suit, speaking with the Secret Service. But a secretary walks in and says he has files missing. Gabby asks what was the reason they took her uncle. Professor Orlock says, "I don't know." At the Luchadoras gym, the promoter walks in, and we meet our second luchadora, Gemma Nelson. She was on tour in Central and South America. Back at the Secret Service, the agents tell the inspector they have no clue where the professor is. At the locker room, Gemma asks Gabby, "Why do your eyes look sad?" To which Gabby responds with, "Thanks." Now, if that sounds repetitive, it is because it is almost the exact same lines from Las Luchadoras Contra el Medico Asesino. Go watch that if you haven't already. The girls shower together, as was the style at the time. Gabby has a wonderful idea, that her and Gemma should move in together. To which Gemma says, yes. In some parking lot, the robot breaks a fence and chases after some guy. But the robot is too strong and rips off the car door. Match number 2. Gabby wrestles some masked girl. Arturo and Chava look on, and Chava says, "What are we doing here?" "Great question, Chava." And Arturo says he is looking for clues. To which Chava says, "You're just here to look at the girl." And Arturo doesn't banter, he just pulls rank and says, "How dare you disrespect a superior officer? I've worked with coworkers like this. They are a buzzkill." At some random shed in the woods, the robot shows up with a man from earlier. Meanwhile, the girls are in the locker room getting dressed, and Gemma Nelson is introduced to Arturo Campos and Chava Lopez. Chava invites the girls to dinner, but Arturo gets a phone call. They have taken Professor Roca. They all show up at the crime scene, and Chava says, "My cop instinct thinks this will continue." At some random office, the robot breaks into Austin Hill's office and karate chops him. Back at the Secret Service, Inspector Rojas is mad and yells at the agents and the girls. I'm not sure if he's yelling at the girls or they're just in the crossfire. Gemma says if no bodies have been found, it means they want the scientist alive. At Orlok's lair, he meets with the Professor Posse, or PP for short. They actually don't call them that, but I thought I'd give them a name. He explains he wants human robots and says he has failed, but will make them the richest, most powerful men. Also, they're more like human zombies, not human robots, but whatever. One of the men says it's barbaric and satanic and refuses. So the mad scientist says he can leave through an exit. But it's another trap. The robot karate chops Professor Reina. Dr. Hill tries to run, but just sits down, while Dr. Roca says he is poor, so he will help Professor Orlok. Dr. Hill says, I have no other option, so I will help. Meanwhile, a moving car throws out Uncle Professor Reina. Gabby vows revenge, while Dr. Orlok pretends to be sad about Reina's death. Outside Dr. Chavez's office, his secretary is distracted, and a robot walks in with no issue. She eventually notices him and tries to flirt, but the robot says he's not interested, and karate chops her. Arturo and Chava try to get info out of the secretary. Unfortunately, the secretary just wants to be in the newspaper, and talks about how handsome the robot was because of his big shoulders. The gang talks about who could have done this, and Chava says maybe it was a robot, and for some reason everyone freaks out. Back at the evil lair, Dr. Chavez says he will help the human robots. At Gabby's apartment, Orlok stops by and asks if there's any news on her uncle's killer. Then Arturo and Chava walk in. They say they found Otto Rick, a robotic expert. They went to ask him if a robot could be behind the disappearances. And Orlok interjects, I gotta go. Dr. Orlok calls his assistant Waldo and tells him to go to Dr. Reich's and says, you know what to do. Waldo tells Zurdo to prepare the robot, and the robot is on his way to Dr. Rick's. A red car drives in the forest. At Dr. Rick's house, his daughter gave him tea. Outside of the stone house, a green car pulls up with Zurdo and Waldo. The robot goes to the daughter's room first and knocks her out. Then he goes into Dr. Rick's office, but the doctor says, get an ambulance, but not for me, and starts blasting. The robot, being a robot, is immune to bullets, so he just karate chops Dr. Rick. Outside the house, our heroes pull up in a red car. They enter the house without a warrant. This is illegal, by the way. For some reason, the stone house is designed with a bedroom, living room, and then office. So when they enter, they see Dr. Rick's daughter in the bedroom. Our heroes all gasp, guessing Rick's daughter won't be returning for the 6th film in the series. Our heroes enter Dr. Rick's office. However, Dr. Rick is in the Shadow Realm. But it's another trap. The robot was hiding in the corner, and Arturo starts blasting, but the robot easily one-shots everyone. The robot walks out, breaking the door. In a cell, Dr. Chavez gives a list to Waldo so he can complete Dr. Orlok's wishes. That night, Arturo calls Gabby to ask what Dr. Chavez's specialty was. She says explosives. At Dr. Orlok's lab, Dr. Chavez does a show and tell, a machine that explodes. This allows Dr. Chavez to escape by walking out the front door. Orlok, of course, sends the robot after Dr. Chavez. Dr. Chavez, for some reason, goes to Gabby's apartment, and not the authorities. He is out of breath. Remember guys, exercise is important. Dr. Chavez asks for water, but when Gabby goes to get a glass, the robot stops by to karate chop her and take Dr. Chavez. Roca tells him he is happy to work with Dr. Orlok. Orlok eavesdrops and is happy to hear what Roca says. Roca even exclaims that he found a way to make humans obedient. At Gabby's house, she says she is hurt, while at Dr. Orlok's lair, the scientists do another show and tell. Match number 3. Gemma versus a different masked Luchadora. Gemma wins. We return to Dr. Orlok's evil lab, and they explain that the Aracelium bracelet will make humans controllable. Human robots, if you will. Kind of seems like they will be human puppets, not human robots, but okay. Also, I'm not sure how a bracelet controls the mind, but I guess that's why I'm not an evil scientist. Dr. Orlok says he wants to see them in action. So he uses it on Dr. Chavez, probably for making that explosion. And they make him do things like walk, and raise a hand, and another hand. It actually worked. He then shuts down Dr. Chavez for some reason. And Dr. Orlok laughs. The next morning, our heroes are talking about who it could be. Arturo says he has no idea. The only other person who knew Arturo and Chava were going to see Dr. Rick was Professor Orlok. Flashback. For some reason, they played the full scene from earlier, but with the sepia tone. I'm not doing that. We return to the evil lair where Dr. Orlok tears up his plans and gets an alert. Our heroes are outside. Zurdo lets him in, and Arturo says they want to ask him some question. But it's another trap! Zurdo pulls out a gun, and the robot enters with Waldo and Dr. Roca and Dr. Hill. Waldo puts an acrylium bracelet on Gemma, and she is under Orlok's control. Roca tries to put a bracelet on Gabby, but she puts it on the robot. Zurdo starts blasting and hits Roca, and he explodes on a computer. Waldo and Zurdo try to calm the robot, but the robot tussles with them. Armando punches Orlok, and Chava starts sucker punching Zurdo. Gabby just takes the acrylium bracelet off, kinda seems like a flaw in the design, and Arturo beats Dr. Orlok, and Gabby steps on the remote. The robot explodes, and the lab catches on fire. Orlok goes to the basement and tells Carfax to escape. They have to leave. So he just breaks out. Was he able to do this at any time? A radio gives exposition. Dr. Orlok's lab was destroyed by the fire. Dr. Orlok tells him to bring a Luchadora so he can take revenge for destroying the robot. So he goes into some random bedroom as sexy jazz music plays. How did Carfax know she was a wrestler? How did she know where she lives? Was she in the movie at any time prior? Doesn't matter, because the next day, the promoter comes in and asks the girls if they've seen Berta Reyes. They say no, and so do all the people who've been watching this movie. Back at Dr. Orlok's evil lab, he will put the brain of Carfax in the Luchadora, so the body can be as strong, and he will use the acrylium bracelet to control her. Zurdo will be there to watch. They make Elektra and cover her in steel plating, but it looks like a gray sweater. She hits a table and it makes a dent. Honestly, not that impressive. Exposition radio. Match number 4, 5, and 6. Elektra has a Goldberg gimmick. She has an undefeated streak, and somehow after 3 matches, she is 6-0. And is the #1 contender for a championship match. Poster. Sin límite de tiempo. La espectacular Gaby Reina versus La poderosa Elektra. Match number 8. Gabby, with a crown looking like a blue Glinda from The Wizard of Oz, with a crown and scepter, walks in. Before the match starts, Gabby somehow recognizes who Bertha is, even though she is wearing a mask. Gemma recognizes Zurdo in the crowd and beats him up. He squeals and says Orlok is in the arena and controlling Elektra the robot, so she hands him over to the police. She jumps into the ring to help Gabby, but the ref does not call a DQ. Gabby tells Arturo that Orlok is in the arena, so Orlok flees. Armando and Chava are in hot pursuit. Orlok and Elektra escape through the back door, but there are so many cops they go back into the arena, and the inspector comes with reinforcements. Orlok and Elektra escape through the light truss in the arena, but they are cornered. Arturo goes after them. Nobody goes with him despite having 20 cops there. To no one's surprise, the robot beats up Arturo with ease. Chava, much like Chema from Las Luchadoras Contra el Medico Asesino, is also a great shot, and one-shots Elektra, then destroys Orlok's control, shooting him in the stomach. Elektra the robot was left in walking motion, and falls over the truss and into the ring. Orlok has a constipated look on his face before falling into the ring. The inspector says, "Call an ambulance," and our heroes walk away. Finn. So what do you guys think? Was this a remake, an homage, or a cheap imitation? Let's start with the bad. This film still has issues with lighting, especially on location or outside. Designs for the villains and characters are kinda weak. Pacing issues, random character inserts, and of course my biggest gripe is that even though the titled heroes are Las Luchadoras, Arturo is the one pushing the action, leaving the girls to take a passive role throughout most of the film. But this film has some better sets, lighting, and costumes. Would I rewatch this? Most likely not. Would I recommend it? Definitely not. It's very similar to Las Luchadoras Contra el Medico Asesino, and I appreciate the attempt at camp. It gave it a charming quality. This film is not bad, it's just not memorable. Anywho, I am thinking of doing a tier list video for the movies I have reviewed for Or Year of the Lord 2025, but tell me, what do you prefer? a tier list, an award show, or something completely different? It will only be for the movies reviewed in 2025. You can leave your suggestions in the comments below. And stick around, Lucha fans, because there are a lot more luchas de tres caídas coming your way. Why not unleash the zombie on the Luchadoras? How did Orlok come up with the money for the first robot Asesino, but not a second?
Roar.
Egad, Carfax!
Roar.
What are you doing with that bracelet?
Roar.
Obey. 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 Obey.